I wasn't always like this. People see me now gray-haired, quiet, living in a senior apartment in a small town in Indiana. And they think I've always been this fragile. But I used to be strong like a river that carved through rock. I built a life from scratch, held my family together when it was falling apart. I raised a son, alone, and I loved him more than I loved myself. His name is Daniel. He was born in spring, May 12, 1989. I remember that day, like it's stitched into my skin. My husband, Joseph, was still alive back then. We were young, poor, hopeful. Joseph had just started driving a delivery truck full-time, and I was sewing clothes at home for extra income. When Daniel came into our world, he was tiny but loud. Lord, that boy had lungs. The nurses said he'd be a singer. I used to smile at that. Joseph died when Daniel was 8. Heart attack, sudden, just like that. One minute we were planning his birthday cookout. The next I was planning his funeral. I didn't even cry at first, couldn't. I was too busy thinking about Daniel. How do you tell a little boy that his daddy isn't coming home? I'll never forget the way Daniel looked at me that day, small, scared, his baseball cap too big for his head. He asked if he had to be the man of the house now. I told him no. I told him he could still be a kid. I'd be the one to carry it all. And I did. God help me. I did everything. I worked 2 jobs, one at the diner, one cleaning offices at night. I missed birthdays. I missed school plays. But I always left him little notes, little sandwiches shaped like hearts, little reminders that Mama was trying. And I really was. Our house, it wasn't much, but it was ours. White shutters, creaky steps, a maple tree out front. I kept it clean, warm, filled with smells of cinnamon and coffee. I wanted Daniel to always feel safe inside it. Years went by. He grew tall, quiet, smart, got into a decent college not far, about 2 hours away. I gave him the savings I had, told him to chase his dreams. I even sold my engagement ring to help with tuition. It didn't matter. He was my only child. He was everything. But after he graduated, something changed. He stopped calling so much, said he was busy. He got a job in the city finance or consulting. I could never keep up. His voice started sounding distant, like I was a chore on his list. I'd send him messages. Are you eating okay? Come by this weekend. I made lemon cake. And sometimes he would. Most times he wouldn't. Then, last November, the fall I'll never forget, I slipped in the kitchen. I was home alone, wet tile, bad shoes. I fell hard, my hip shattered. I lay there for hours. Daniel didn't answer. I finally called 911 myself. The paramedics were kind, told me I was lucky. But luck didn't feel like lying in a sterile hospital bed with no one by your side. Daniel visited once, brought me a bouquet and left after 15 minutes. Said he had a conference call. That's when the nurse looked at me gentle, curious, and said, I thought your son would stay longer, considering what he just did. I blinked. What do you mean? And that's when she told me. Your house, she said. I overheard him on the phone. He's selling it. Said it was already in his name. I laughed. I thought she was mistaken. But when I got discharged 2 weeks later, and the cab turned down my street, my house was gone. A sold sign on the front yard. Movers carrying boxes that weren't mine. And my mailbox. Empty. No nameplate. No Mrs. Evelyn Carter. I stood there with my hospital bag in my hand and my soul completely hollow. I just stood there, in the middle of the sidewalk, wrapped in that itchy hospital shawl, holding a small plastic bag with my clothes and pills, and watched strangers carry out pieces of the life I built. There was a young couple standing by the porch. The woman was holding a baby bright-eyed, wrapped in a green blanket. The man had his arm around her and was laughing about how the fireplace just gives the house such charm. I wanted to scream. I wanted to walk right up that driveway, throw my keys down, and tell them this was a mistake. That I lived there. That I made every inch of that house a home. With love and loss and cinnamon and birthdays and long nights of crying in silence. But I didn't. I just stood there, frozen. And that's when I saw Daniel's car. He pulled up clean, silver sedan. Music playing and stepped out like everything was fine. Like this was normal. He didn't look shocked to see me. He didn't even seem nervous. Just sighed and said, "Mom, I was going to call you. Call me." He sold my home while I was in a hospital bed and he was going to call me. I remember my voice shaking as I asked him, "Why? Why would you do this?" And what he said. I don't think I'll ever forget it. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "It didn't make sense for you to live there anymore. You couldn't even walk up the stairs. The house is too big. I took care of it. You'll thank me later." I couldn't breathe. Took care of it. He sold the only thing I had left that still felt like mine. Without asking. Without explaining. Without a word. I asked him whose name was on the deed. I never changed it. I never gave it to him. Turns out, years ago, when I signed some legal paperwork he brought over to streamline bills, I gave him power of attorney. I didn't even know. I didn't ask. He told me to trust him, and I did. I let my son become the keeper of my life and he sold it. That night, I slept in a shelter. They were kind to me, the volunteers. They made tea, gave me a warm cot. But I'd never felt so cold in my life. And not because of the air. It was the emptiness inside me. A kind of grief I never expected to feel, not even when Joseph died. Because the truth is, I didn't just lose my house. I lost my son. And here's the hardest part to admit. I think I always knew this day would come. When Daniel was 14, he stole $50 from my purse. I found the empty envelope hidden behind his textbooks. He cried, said he needed it for a video game all his friends were playing. I was furious, hurt, but I forgave him. I didn't punish him. I didn't want to be that mother, strict, hard, and loving. When he was 17, he crashed our old Corolla trying to sneak out. I told him he had to pay half the repair costs. He promised. Never did. I made excuses to the mechanic. Worked weekends to cover it. Over and over again. I kept saying, he'll grow out of it. He's just a boy. He'll understand someday. But someday never came. He became a man who smiled in suits, shook hands at conferences, and saw his mother as a burden and asset to be liquidated. I raised a boy with love, and I ended up with a man who couldn't love back. And yet I still miss him. Is that what motherhood really is? Loving even when it hurts, even when it humiliates you. Sometimes I sit in this apartment, looking out the window at strangers walking their dogs, laughing on porches, playing catch with their kids. And I wonder, where did I go wrong? But then I remind myself I did the best I could. I gave all the love I had. I sacrificed, I bent, I broke for him. And he made his choices. Now it's time I made mine. I don't know how long I sat by that window the first week. After I moved into the apartment. Time has a way of moving slowly when your heart is heavy. The apartment was small. Just one bedroom, thin walls. You could hear the neighbor's television through the drywall. But it was warm, clean. The lady at the front desk, Mrs. Alvarez, she gave me extra towels and a discount on my rent until I could get my bearings. I didn't tell her the full story. I said I was recovering from surgery, which was true. But what I didn't say was, I was recovering from betrayal. The kind that doesn't show on x-rays. The kind that makes your bones feel hollow. Some nights, I couldn't sleep. I'd get up, walk barefoot to the little kitchen, make tea, and just stare out the window. The parking lot lights cast shadows across the trees. Somewhere, a baby would cry. Cars would come and go. Life went on. And in those moments, I realized something. No one was coming to save me. Not Daniel. Not old neighbors. Not the church ladies who used to ask for my banana bread recipe. Not even the memory of Joseph, who used to hold my hand during thunderstorms and whisper, "We'll be okay, Evie." It was just me now. And I had to decide what kind of life I wanted to live with the time I had left. A week later, I went to the grocery store for the first time in months. I was still walking slowly. My hip wasn't fully healed, but I wanted to feel normal again. I put on lipstick, wore a cardigan my mother had knitted me years ago. I told myself, "You are not a victim. You are still here." At the produce aisle, I bumped into someone I hadn't seen in nearly 30 years. Her name was Clarice. She looked at me, eyes wide, and said, "Evelyn Carter, is that really you?" We hugged. She smelled like lavender and vanilla, just like she used to. We'd worked the diner together in the 90s, laughed over burnt coffee and rude customers. I used to call her my Thursday therapist. We hadn't spoken since Joseph's funeral. We got coffee that afternoon, and I told her everything. Not just about the house, but about the loneliness, about how I'd built my entire life around one person, one son, and how he'd erased me with a signature on a real estate contract. She listened. She didn't interrupt once, just held my hand. And then she said something I didn't expect. "Evelyn, maybe this is the beginning, not the end." I laughed. I said, "I'm almost 60. What beginning?" And she said, "The one where you stop waiting to be loved and start loving yourself." I cried right there in that coffee shop. But they weren't tears of grief. They were release. Because she was right. That night, I did something strange. I pulled out an old notebook from a box I had taken from the hospital. It still had Daniel's second-grade drawings in its stick, figures of us holding hands in front of the sun. I flipped past them and wrote the first letter I had written in over a decade. Not to Daniel, to me. "Dear Evelyn," I wrote, "I'm sorry I forgot you. I'm sorry I made your worth depend on someone else's approval. I'm sorry I gave so much that I forgot to save something for you." That letter changed something in me. The next day, I signed up to volunteer twice a week at the very hospital where I recovered. They needed help at the reception desk and with flower deliveries. I thought, why not? And that's where I met Maya. She was 14, in treatment for leukemia. Bright eyes, big smile, bald and beautiful. She said my voice reminded her of her grandmother's. I brought her coloring books and peach candies. We played cards when she felt strong enough. One day she asked me why I was always smiling even though my eyes looked sad. I didn't know what to say. So I told her, because I'm trying to remember what joy feels like. She nodded, then handed me a drawing she'd made a picture of a woman with gray hair and a gold heart. She wrote on the bottom, "You make people feel like home." I hung that drawing on my fridge. It's still there. And Daniel, I haven't heard from him in 7 months. He sends birthday texts, cold, distant, one-sentence things like, "Hope you're doing well." I respond politely. I don't ask him why. I don't beg for an apology. I don't check his social media anymore. I let go. Because here's what I've learned in all these long, quiet months. Sometimes the people we raise are not who we dreamed they'd be. Sometimes the love we give gets lost in them and we have to grieve the idea of who they were or could have been. But that doesn't mean we stop living. I may have lost my house, but I found myself. It was a Thursday morning in early spring when the pain started again. I had just finished folding a small load of laundry. Maya's sweater was tucked in with mine somehow, and I felt this sharp, aching pressure in my chest. Not stabbing, not dramatic, just persistent, like a reminder that something wasn't quite right. I sat down on the couch, took a few deep breaths, tried to talk myself out of it. I'd volunteered that morning at the hospital, delivered some flowers to the IQ, and held the hand of a woman who was waiting for biopsy results. I felt fine then, but now, in the quiet of my apartment, with no one watching, I felt scared. I don't know how long I sat there before I reached for the phone. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. And just like that, I was back in the same white room. The same smell of antiseptic and starch. Different gown, same quiet loneliness. They kept me overnight, ran tests, monitored my heart. I could see the concern on the nurse's face when she came in with the clipboard. She didn't say much, just, "We're going to keep a close eye on you, Mrs. Carter." Later that night, I opened my little fabric pouch where I keep important papers and pulled out my will. I had written it 3 months ago. Not a big one. Just some notes about who should get what. A few pieces of jewelry. My mother's old Bible, a box of letters from Joseph I. Never had the courage to reread. And the name of the woman I wanted to be notified first. It wasn't Daniel. It was Clarice. She had shown up for me. When I was at my lowest, she sat beside me, no expectations, no judgment, just presence. And presence is love, isn't it? I remember looking at that piece of paper and feeling this strange calmness settle over me. Like for the first time in decades, I had made a decision for me, not for anyone else. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of someone arguing with the front desk nurse, a voice I hadn't heard in 7 months. Daniel. He walked into my room wearing an expensive navy coat, with worrying on his face, but I could tell it wasn't for me. It was for the appearance of things, like he had shown up out of obligation, not affection. "Mom," he said, "why didn't you call me?" I stared at him. Let the silence linger. "I didn't know I was supposed to," I said. He looked at me, confused. "Hurt, maybe. I'm your son." I nodded slowly. "Are you?" He sat down, put his phone on silent for once, and leaned forward. "I'm sorry," he said. Just those 2 words. No explanation. No excuses. Not even tears. He just said it, like someone reading off a script they didn't fully understand. I wanted to believe it, but I didn't. Instead, I looked at him not as the boy I once raised, not as the man who sold my house, but as another human being, flawed, confused, maybe just as lonely as I was. "Do you know," I said, "that I used to pray for you every single night, even after what you did?" He looked down. "I wasn't praying for you to come back," I continued. "I was praying for you to find peace, because I realized you must have been hurting too. People don't betray unless something inside them is broken." He whispered. I didn't know what I was doing. "Mom, I thought I was helping." I nodded again. "Maybe you were, but you helped the way a surgeon helps with a rusty knife." He didn't defend himself this time. He didn't talk over me or dismiss my words like he had when he was younger. He just sat there. We talked for about an hour, about nothing and everything, about the weather, about the old maple tree that used to stand outside the house, about Joseph, about how Daniel used to crawl into my bed when it thundered. And when he left, I didn't hug him, but I watched him walk away and I felt something shift inside me. I realized forgiveness doesn't always mean reuniting. Sometimes it means letting go of the weight. Sometimes it means setting someone free in your heart so you can breathe again. I was discharged the next day. Clarice picked me up, brought me flowers. Maya had drawn me another picture this time. It was of a house, not the one I lost. A new one, simpler, with a heart above the door. I hung it in my kitchen, right beside the calendar where I now write down small joys. Tried strawberry yogurt, liked it, told a joke at the hospital, made someone laugh, listened to old records, remembered who I used to be. Life is quieter now. No grand reunions, no dramatic apologies, just slow healing. And every now and then, I sit by that window at sunset, sip my tea, and think, I survived. I was broken, and I lived. Because even when love is taken, even when trust is shattered, you can still choose to love yourself. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of love that lasts. I used to think the saddest thing in the world was being alone. I thought if I wasn't someone's mother, someone's wife, someone's everything, I was nothing. But now, I think the saddest thing is being surrounded by people who don't see you, who don't listen, who think of you only when they need something. And strangely, once you realize that, the silence doesn't scare you anymore. It comforts you. It teaches you who you are when no one else is watching. When I started this story, I told you about the house white shutters, creaky stairs, the maple tree outside. But the truth is, that was never my home. My home was in the little moments, in the cinnamon rolls I made on Sundays, in the way Joseph used to tuck a flower behind my ear in spring, in the quiet joy of rocking baby Daniel to sleep when the wind howled outside, in my own hands, rough from cleaning, but strong, always strong. That was home, and no one can sell that. Clarice and I go walking every Tuesday now. She says we're the gray-haired gossip brigade. We laugh aloud and wave at dogs. We share recipes and old stories and sometimes just walk in silence. Maya finished chemo. Her hair is growing back soft and wild and lovely. She's going back to school soon. She asked me if I'd come to her 8th grade graduation. I told her only if I get to sit in the front row. She grinned and hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. And Daniel, he called last week, told me he got promoted, that he was moving to a new city, San Diego. I congratulated him, asked if he was happy. He hesitated, then said, "I'm working on it." That's all he said. No mention of the past, no request to visit, no apology tucked between lines. And that's okay, because I'm working on it too. I'm learning that motherhood doesn't always mean being needed. Sometimes it means being remembered. And sometimes being forgotten and still forgiving anyway. I don't know how much time I have left in this life. None of us do. But I know this. I want the rest of my days to feel real. No more waiting by the phone. No more giving everything until there's nothing left. No more begging to be seen. Just small joys. Soft mornings, honest conversations, a second cup of tea, a new book, a warm bed, a walk in the sun, my name written in my own handwriting on the front door. Because home is not a house, it's peace. And I finally found mine.